Hey peeps, hope everybody had a good weekend with fantasy football, DFS, Rainmakers, etc. Or just had a good time. Uh, so I want to go over the week 2 slate that's just come out. In particular, I want to focus on the big contest this week. It's got the $250,000 guaranteed pool on the Sunday main slate for DraftKings ReignMakers. They call it the RMF Classic Elite Fiat Frenzy. Covers 12 games on the Sunday main slate. Now, DraftKings did lower the guarantees from week 1 to week 2, so it was like 2 million plus to I think 1 to 1.5 million plus on all the different various contests, and they changed the payouts and stuff. But this was pre-announced. This isn't a surprise. I believe if you go on certain of their parts of their website or the Discord, you can see what they've sort of guaranteed for the rest of the season. I think minimums, minimum $1 million a week type thing. Looks like some of the core cards are down a little bit today following the weekend, which isn't surprising. I would expect they'll ramp back up heading into next weekend, Thursday games and Sunday games, and the showdowns. But they're sort of funneling. This is their what's the word, like most prestigious, biggest paying tournament. It's on the elite level, which is an expensive level. But the contest this week has a first prize of $100,000, second prize of $30,000, third prize of $10,000. It pays out 1,567 spots. I do not know how many entries there were in it last week. I wasn't in it, and it's not that information's not up if you aren't in the contest. I don't think it was that many or many over that if it was. So pretty much, I believe everybody that got in it got something back, but you have to double check that. And check the number of entrants as it gets closer to Sunday. I mean, currently the number of entrants is going to be super low. Let's take a real quick look. So this is the biggest contest. This is the biggest moneymaker one if you want to go for the Big Daddy. Currently there's 408 entries. So the lowest cash pays a rare card, 1 pack. Their prize packs are 1 card, as far as unless they add some new ones. Up to 1,067 place, you get an elite 1 card pack, and starting 867 place, you get $75 minimum. Now there are elite cards worth $1,000 or more, and rare cards worth $100 or more. So perhaps it'd be almost better to get that elite pack. There is no entry fee to the contest, but you must have 4 elite cards and 1 rare currently to enter this. If you do play a superstar, it has to be an elite or higher. They may change this in the future where you have to have 5 elites, but currently it's 4 elite and 1 rare, which makes it a little cheaper. Now the elite cards are rare. They're extremely rare. I almost wonder why they have 5 levels of rarity. They probably could have gotten away with 4, but just take a quick look at this. This is very much approximations, but for each individual player, the maximum number of elite cards of that player that could be available right now is somewhere between 200 and 300, and the actual is less. You can sort of judge that by packs sold and owners and how many listings are on, things like that. So what that means is, let's say Josh Allen was in this tournament, which he's not, then the most number of lineups that could have him in it would be 255, and there's not even that many out there. Just to give an idea of the cards and how many there are on levels. Core, I'm estimating probably around 4,000 to up to possibly 5,000 of each player. Rare maximum 1,365, the actuality is less. Elite 255, the actuality is less. Legendary 50, the actuality is less. And the Rainmakers generally will have 1 to 2. You can look at the pack sales, and also just when you want to buy packs, go to the marketplace drops. And the Momentum Core is the one that they've got a whole lot of those. That's the one that I've been buying. The Momentum Rare is probably a good one if you want to gamble a little more for some big hits. But just so the Momentum Core they put out, there's a lot of those, and they're available. They've already sold out the Elevate ones. I don't think they're planning on any other sets after this. But just one quick note. The Elevate Rainmaker pack has 20. There are only 20 of them. It costs $30,000. They've sold 12 of those packs. So there's some serious whales on this. And that's on the highest tier. And those are basically one of one cards. And currently, none of the players have over one or two of those even available. And those offer some additional benefits. So anyway, that's the big contest. So I'm going to focus on the Elite with a little bit of rare in this video, even though I'm pretty much on the rare and core level. But this is what you should probably aspire to get up to if you want to go into the biggest contest. Okay, I just want to show real quick my last 4 packs because I'm on a 4-pack win streak, and so I actually look at the actual numbers here today. The cores are down a little bit, it looks like, but I bought a 20, and these were like almost like one every other day as I sold. But I bought a $20 booster core. This is the video I posted. I got an AJ Brown. Sold that. This is for after fees. Sold it for $81. Got a Pittman and an Elliott. So that pack I paid $20 for 3 cards. That's $66 each approximately. Worth $102. That's an $80 profit. So then I went and bought a $50 of the Momentum cores. Now those have 5 cards. 2 are skill players, and the 5th card is a guaranteed rare with a small chance of an Elite. And Elite are going to be worth quite a bit more. I haven't looked at the pack breakdown, but I think the Elites. You have to see what Elites it contains. It doesn't contain all the players. So that's basically $10 a card. So I said, well, let me try one of these because Momentum said it just came out. I got a Cortland Sutton rare. I sold that for $72 after fees. So I got a Pittman there and an Elliott on the core levels. And the Pittman being 50 seemed cheap to me, but some of the cores are down. Extremely useful cards, and you can use one core card in your rare lineups currently. These weren't as good. The Smith could be good. Hasn't been so far. The others could pop in showdowns and things like that. So when I sold that, I'm like, well, let me get another one. So this one I got a Jamar Chase. I was like, holy shit. And I sold that today. I lowered my price and sold today. I'm sort of regretting it. I mean, that's a great card to hold. And it's too cheap. But I put a limit price in and it filled. So I got 88 after fees. In that same pack, I got a Hilaire, which is a bit jacked up now. I also got a Tua. That's too low on that. So that pack, another profit. So that's like an $80 profit pack. That's a 33. That's a 72. So then I went and bought another one this morning. I'm like, let me see if I can continue this one. This was a very deep pack, but not a super duper valuable because I got a Michael Thomas low serial. I got a Keenan Allen low serial. I got a Madison, who's a good backup for Cook. I got a Baker Mayfield, who's a decent quarterback. And then I got a Zeke rare running back. This pack itself, though, because the cores are a little lower than they were, that's only a $19 winner. It's basically worth $70. I paid $50. The Zeke could, if you gonna have to shoulder more of the load. We'll have to see. Allen's a little hurt, but still a nice pack. That's 4 profitable packs in a row, right off the bat, and cashing them out. So basically, 170 spent on these packs. They're worth 376. That's a profit of 206. That includes 241 already sold. So that's covered what I paid for them. All right, let's move on down here. Now, I talked the other day, just real quick. So if you look back at 2021, last year's week 2 DFS, DraftKings scoring, these players from quarterback, running back, they got over 30 points. Because you're looking at lineups, you're looking to win it, you're going to have probably to get average 150 or above. So last year, this week 2, there was Jackson, Murray, and Brady on the quarterbacks, Henry and Aaron Jones, Kupp, Lockett, and McLaurin all hit over that. And if you had, assuming these were superstars, and you could only pick one, then this was the perfect lineup, or the highest lineup, 197 points, which is a whole lot. Just looking back at last week, the first week, this includes players who were in showdowns. I sort of had to approximate this, or figure this out myself, but 3 quarterbacks over 30, Mahomes, Allen, and Wentz. 2 running backs, Barkley and Taylor. And 5 wide receiver tight ends, Jefferson, Kupp, Adams, Chase, and Pittman. This won the big core, that score won the big core tournament, which had the most entries, so that's probably among the highest scores that were achieved on the site. And I believe that was the perfect lineup, around 171 points with like Wentz, Barkley, Jefferson, Pittman, and one other one. Oh, and then there were several who were like a little under 30, like Swift. All right, so I showed you the other day just using the projections to as one way to the Vegas odds, basically, of projected scoring, implied scoring per team, and the over-unders to sort of get an idea of what teams to target, what players and teams to target, and then add in some that are sort of necessary ones. So this is currently the highest projected scoring teams, and after this, there's sort of a gap down. So you got the Rams in Vegas, tied Denver, San Francisco, Detroit, Indianapolis, and Cincy. Along with those, there's 4 games that are basically stand apart as higher scoring, although that's not really, 47 points is not really that high scoring in the scheme of things, but these 4 games were sort of above the others. And in those games, you have Arizona, Washington, Atlanta, and Jacksonville who aren't on this list. So I add them in. And what I showed in the other video was that virtually all the players who hit, as a matter of fact, all the players in the winning lineups of the 4 tournaments or 6 tournaments I checked were from this categories or sort of like others. So then I break down those 11 teams right here and sort of put quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, flex, like players that are possible to play. And then I'm looking at projections from 2 different fantasy sites averaged out for DraftKings next week, main slate only. This does not include the showdown players. And the projections can change. There's injury, uncertainties and whatnot. But that sort of gave a list of ones above a certain threshold, okay? Then you want to see how many actual players that adds up to. So in this case, like Stafford, Carr, Russell Wilson, Lance, Burrow, Murray, and Wentz hit the threshold. Goff, Ryan, Mariota, and Lawrence did not, although I certainly could consider Goff, Ryan, and Lawrence playable, depending. And then the only other 2 that were really worth adding at that point were Lamar Jackson and Tom Brady. And if you notice, Tom Brady had a big week last year, and Lamar Jackson on the week 2 of 2021. Now that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but if the highest scorer on week 1 of 2021 was Mahomes, and then he did it again in 2022. So Jackson, Murray, so that made sense that they would be in there, and Murray's on there, Jackson, Brady, Murray. So the only additional quarterbacks I'm adding. Now that leaves out Tua, Winston, Daniel Jones, and others, which could do well, and you could consider putting them in, but for the purposes of this, no. So that gives us 9 quarterbacks. 9 quarterbacks. 9 lineups takes 45 players. If you wanted to make 9 different lineups with all completely different players. The running backs, Henderson of the Rams is projected pretty high on one side, not that high on another. Jacobs barely made the threshold. Javonte Williams, Swift, Taylor, Mixon, Connor, Gibson, Patterson. Robinson slightly missed. Etienne slightly missed. Gordon was a bit below. Hines was a little further below both these. And of course, you got to remember too with the superstars. There's not that many of the superstars on these in general. So then adding to that list, McCaffrey, Barkley, Fournette, Kamara, Chubb, and Harris. This left out Elliott, and actually I added in Edmonds to fill up remaining slots. You could add in Elliott instead, or Edmonds. There were a couple others around that tier. So that leaves out Wilson also, who was a little short for San Francisco. Wide receivers, Kupp, Adams, Sutton, and Judy both for Denver. I think they're thinking that this might be like a little bit of a Lockett and Metcalf type thing where he had that going, where they both would put up points and some one week more than others. St. Brown, Pittman, Chase, Marquise Brown, who's projected pretty high on one site, McLaurin, and Kirk, good sleeper. People are sleeping on him a lot. And then Judy, Waller actually barely hit the threshold. Renfro almost did. These others, Robinson, Ayuk, Kittle, Chark, Hawkinson, Higgins, Boyd. Higgins probably out. Ertz, Dotson, Pitts, London. Added to those, Lamb, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, Cooks, underrated, under the radar, Deontay Johnson, and Andrews. The ones that were in sort of the just missed were DJ Moore, Michael Thomas, and Waddle. Certainly all 3 of those could go in. I end up using those 2. So based on the projections, the top projected stacks, if you're looking at just one stack, like a 1-on-1 stack, like generally quarterback, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, you could go quarterback, running back as well with some of them, but are the Rams, Vegas, Bengals, and the Ravens. Then next are Denver, 49ers, the Bucks, and the Cardinals. I'm going to get into the lineups down below, but just to give you an idea how much it's going to cost if you don't own any of these to get into this elite. And remember, you can use lineups for there's like going to be 18 more plus playoff weeks of contests, and you can enter it every week. But if you didn't have any and you wanted to buy what is sort of like the top projected one, it would at the low floors. I just looked at. Now, of course, there could be mistakes. I could have missed one. There could have been some could be gone, but the top projected lineup was around 3650. This is four elite and one rare. If you want to go 5 elite, it's going to be more. The most expensive lineup was around 4200 of the group. The bargain one, the bargain value, so to speak, was 2200 because that's projected a good total versus the overall totals. And the absolute cheapest viable, I would say, so this is like bargain value, good deal. Cheapest viable was 1600, 76 points. If you want to go on 5 elites, it's like 1900 up to 5400. If you just want to get these on rares, it's 200 to 600, 700, and of course with the rare contest you can do 4 rare and 1 core, so they would even be cheaper than that. All right, so let's look at the first set of unique lineups with the stacks. Okay, so all these are stacks, and what I did was there's 9 quarterbacks. Okay, that's not using Goff, Ryan, Mariota, Lawrence, any of those. It's these 2 plus the 7 from the highest scoring teams or games. These guys could pop in there as well, but this sort of limits the amount to the higher probabilities. And virtually, I think all of those had a stack in there. It's a matter of how many you put in the stack or if you decide to do it or not. But so Stafford and Kupp, and like I said, Stafford's projected really high on one side, not on the other. I thought he actually didn't look very good last week and almost looked hurt, a little hurt, or I don't know, physically not himself, but he put up decent points, right? Stafford and Kupp, Carr and Adams, Burrow and Chase, Lamar and Andrews, Murray and Marquise Brown, Wilson and Sutton in this case, could swap Judy, Brady and Evans, Lance and Debo and Wentz and McLaurin. You could also swap in Gibson there, I think. At that point, what I did then was basically put the highest qualifiers starting here on down. I didn't try to make these even. So that ended up being Barkley, Pittman, and Swift, 103. Mixon, Hill, and Kamara. Kamara possible injury, 94. Fournette, St. Brown, and Williams, 88. That's Javonte Williams. Chubb, Judy, and Gibson, 85. Murray. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry. Then I went to the next. After doing that, then it was next on to the projected by superstars. Okay, because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's also 9 superstars, so it matches up perfectly to have 1 superstar. So then McCaffrey went next highest because these running backs were filled. Taylor, Lamb, Samuel, Najee Harris. So that lineup had McCaffrey, Cooks, and Connor. This one had Taylor, Deontay Johnson, and Henderson for the Rams. This one had Cordell Patterson, another one people continually sleep on, Lamb and Kirk. This one had Josh Jacobs, iffy, Michael Thomas and DJ Moore. And this one had Najee Harris, Waller, and Edmonds. You can see the range of totals, but really only 2 came out like above 90. I had a lot of lineups that projected 70s and 80s, and I only had 2 that came in over 100 on the week, but I had one really good cash. I think came in at 130 something. I had a lot of these type projections, 70s and 80s, and a lot of them came in 50s and 60s. Some came in 70s, 80s, and a couple came in over 100. If you wanted to do this at NonStacks, I think you can go down to 6 quarterbacks, 6 lineups. I think I narrowed this down to 6 lineups. I threw out Lance. Stafford, you have to check the health on. If you want to throw out Lance, Wentz, and who's the other one? I threw out Brady. Brady was actually a little lower projected. So I threw out these 3 quarterbacks. And I threw out Lamb, Samuel, and Harris. So basically from there, non-stack wise, this is the top projected lineup. Murray, Barkley, Kupp, Pittman, and Swift. This is using a different superstar and different players for each one. 103 points. Stafford, like I said, his projections could be a little high, but the next one was actually Stafford, Taylor, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, and Mixon, 97. The next one would be Russell Wilson, McCaffrey, Mark Andrews, St. Brown, Kamara, injury possibly, 91. The next one was Lamar, Fournette, Sutton, Cooks, and Chubb, 85. The next one was Burrow, Javonte Williams, Devontae Adams, Deontay Johnson, Gibson, 88. And the next one was Carr, Connor, Chase, Judy, Henderson, 86. So that's sort of like the even narrower bucket of players, if you really want to narrow it down even more, that are projected the highest, not necessarily, and they're in high score. They're projected high, and they're in high scoring games, or they're just projected high, highest basically. So taking a look at some of the floor prices on these elites and rares. These were the sort of 45 players who should fit. Basically, all these would fit. If you had done something like this last week, you would have had you would have had good odds of having a very strong lineup, depending on the combination. Basically, all the people who came in the big prizes had these players among them, these categories, this tier, so to speak. So I sorted these by elite pricing, and you can see there's a lot of discrepancy on the lowest elites, and these can change a lot because remember, there's only 200 to 300 of these max, and there's not even that many that actually exist currently. So again, if you have a cup, there's only like 200 other people who can make an elite cup. There's only like 200 other people who can make a lineup with that, 200 to 300 in the big contest. So if cup goes off and nobody else goes off, you're looking pretty. Anyway, Russell Wilson was the most expensive. That's actually probably still jacked up from the Monday night showdown game. But you know, if people bought them, they probably aren't going to just sell them for a loss immediately. A lot of these people, they're going to hold on to it, which is, if that number holds up as the highest, shows that. Then Burrow, Brady, Murray, Jackson looks cheap. Carr, Lance, Stafford, Wentz looks cheap. Stafford looks cheap. On the rares, the lowest. Again, Wilson, then Murray, Burrow, Brady, Lamar, Carr, Lance, Stafford, Wentz. So Wentz doesn't look quite as cheap there. This is actually a ratio. So the elites are approximately 6 times rarer, something around that, as far as how many less elite cards there are than rare. But the ratios on all these are higher than 6 because 6 elite cards have a premium on them. Because partially because people want to get into these contests and they just may have less for sale. The bigger people, bigger whale types are in these cards, and they don't necessarily want to flip them. So the ratio sort of tells you what's elite versus rare. Like, this is a good deal on the elite. This is a good deal on the elite compared to the rare. Well, that's expensive compared to the. You can just see it right here. That rare is 145. That's 85. Well, that elite's cheaper than that. So like Murray elite on a relative basis compared to its rare is a good deal. So on the running backs, Swift most expensive by quite a bit. McCaffrey, Barkley, Chubb, Taylor, Mixon. Man, it looks a little relatively cheap to me. Kamara, Javonte, Connor, Fournette, Najee Harris, Gibson, Edmonds, Elliott, Jacobs, Patterson, Henderson. So that's quite a spread, 300 up to 1,000. I mean, depending on what you want to spend. If you want to get something that, you know, can maybe get you into these tournaments and maybe have a small chance of hitting a big, that's the kind of thing. And on the ratios, the Mixon on the elite looked a little underpriced. The Barkley, actually, considering that's that much, and it's 300 cheaper than Swift. Most pricey, the Jacobs, and the Chubb, and the McCaffrey pretty pricey. So this doesn't include some of the players that are in the showdowns, obviously, some of the big stars. And on the wide receivers, Devontae Adams, highest, Andrews, Evans, Kupp. That looks cheap, or that looks expensive, however you want to look at it. I would say that looks expensive. Hill, that just means there's not many of them for sale, basically. Hill, Sutton, Chase, Pittman, Brown, Lamb, Waddle, Moore, St. Brown, Johnson, Judy, Samuel, way down there, Thomas, McLaurin, Cooks, Kirk, and Waller. On the rare, Kupp is much more expensive, but on the elite, Adams is much cheaper. So that's kind of like that's cheaper there, that's cheaper there. If you look at the ratios, the Hill relative basis, the Chase. Now I sold that for that price, and it was too low. I really wanted to get 125 or more. I'm regretting it already, but I also sold a Sutton, and I sold a AJ Brown, who's not on this slate. Anyway, you can see the spread there. You can see if you want to get the rares. So like one way to save money on getting into this contest would be to buy your best player as a rare, or most expensive, sorry, if you wanted to save money. If they continue having it be 4 elite and 1 rare entering to the contest, they could make it go all be 5 rare. That's sort of what So Rare did on their baseball contest. They start off like you could use 1 or 2 commons, and it eventually became 0 commons. So keep that in mind if you are going that way. But if you do want to slip into the rare tournament with 4 rares and 1 core, you can currently do that and slip into that. So just looking at the prices. So the cheapest lineup on the elite cost, including a superstar and then buying one rare, generates 76 projected. That's Wentz, Henderson, Debo, Waller, and Cordell, and that's around $1,600. If you did all elites, it'd be $1,900. And of course, you can use that for 18, every week of the season. The one that looked the best bargain-wise was Stafford, Fournette, Chase, Cooks, and Gibson. That's based on this elite pricing, and that one being a rare. So that was about $2,300, and that's projected at 87 points. And of course, you can swap in players. That's no stack on that. You can swap in and out players, obviously, for your preference or what you may have or what you think is a bargain. It's real. I think it's just keeping aware of the prices, and so you can save yourself some money. That can come in handy. This is like the highest ratio, I think. Yeah, so these are ones that are the most expensive. Now, this is actually the ones where the elites are the least expensive relative to the rares and still being high scoring. So this is a 95-point scoring lineup. And it would be Murray, Mixon, Chase, Hill, and Barkley, just doing elite only. On the other hand, here was one where the rares were where the elites are pricey compared to the rares. And that would be like Brady, Edmonds, Lamb, Waddle, Moore. That's like $3,300, projected 76 points. Okay, so the top lineup that I mentioned projected Murray, Barkley, Kupp, Pittman, Swift, 102 points. Obviously, there's a lot of week 1 recency bias in my perceptions, but also the projections. And you might be more of a reversion to the mean type player. That's people who are looking at like McCaffrey, some of the other guys that didn't come in as big as people thought they would. Kamara. There's a variety, but there could be some reversion to the mean on some of these. There's more players that aren't on this as well, like Henry and some of the other big names, like the big name quarterbacks. So that one on the rare was 615. On the elite plus a rare, It was 36.45. In that case, it was buying like the Swift. And buying them all straight out as elites would have been about 4,800. The most expensive lineup at the time was a 94 generating one with Wilson, Swift, Andrews, Evans, and McCaffrey. That was about $4,200. And this is all, again, using one superstar in each lineup. For 5,400 there. The most expensive rare one of those in the group above, if you want, was Wilson, Barkley, Cup, Tyreek Hill, and Swift for 660. The Wilsons, again, may come down. They're out of line right now because of the Monday Night Football game, but they haven't come down yet. Anyway, so that sort of wraps it up. Just wanted to give you an idea of maybe what teams to target if you're going to kind of go with this kind of strategy. It did work last week. It doesn't work every week, but it gives you a pool of like teams that you might want to look at their players, because remember, we're not doing the salary cap. And, it narrows it down, and it does, but at the other hand, it can kind of leave some off. But it's sort of I think it's a decent way to do it. From what I've been looking at with ReignMakers, there's no guarantee in any given week. But to come up with, if let's say you wanted to have all these quarterbacks paired, then you could do 9 lineups. I'm not saying do these exact players, do them exactly like that. Or you could go down to like 6 quarterbacks and try to have 6 good lineups. And that's assuming you have different superstars and you want to make different lineups. You could have multiples of the same player. There's obviously a risk if that player gets injured. There's nothing wrong with having multiples, but like if you go all in with one lineup 20 times, well, you're going to have to replace somebody if somebody gets hurt bad or underperforms real bad. All right, guys. Enjoy yourselves. Have a good one, and hopefully we'll win some more money this week and have some more nice marketplace sales, and hopefully I have another good pack. That's 4 in a row, good profitable packs. All right, talk to you later.